Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of the Players NIL Industry Insider Podcast. My special guest today, the founder of Founders Live, Mr. Nick Hughes. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Mark. It's very nice to be here and excited to chat about athletics, entrepreneurship, and all of this.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned in our preamble here a little bit, I do have some obligatory questions, but I think they're important. But you just brought something up to me that I want to go back and dive into a little bit because, one of the principles of our business is how do you use athletics to better your life? And many people react to that with, well, I didn't play sports at a high level, or I only played in high school, whatever it was. It doesn't make any difference. If you had a passion, if you had an interest, if it drove some of your thinking and your direction, then you were successful in using that pillar. So you told me that you were an athlete as a youngster growing up. The question I have for you is, tell me about a seminal moment in athletics when you were like, this is cool. I really enjoy this.
Well, yeah, geez, I have so many, but a very brief experience in terms of, I was, as an athlete growing up, I played soccer and basketball. And, I kind of joked, I played basketball with the buddies as well as kept in shape in the wintertime for, the soccer season, which I played at quite a high level. Through my youth in high school, but then I did not play in college. I chose to not play. But what's interesting is I was very attracted to or drawn to essentially how do you, or, the performance aspect of training and excellence. And so I transitioned into, as a strength coach, I studied biomechanics and physiology. And I went from like an athlete to like a student that started to really understand the body, the performance, and athletic excellence at that high level, and was working with very significant coaches. And I ended up graduating, from the university, my university. My first job was out of school was with the Seattle Sonics when they were still in Seattle, and the Seattle Storm in the WNBA. And to answer your question, there is, you know, it was my first time to really see that the professional side of things, and to realize that these players are playing a kid's game and they're getting paid tremendous amount of money, and the level of the professionalism, the training. I was working with professional athletes and training them in the weight room and speed and agility. And so, I think that was just like it went from like this is something that you can play and you're a fun athlete in the youth to, oh, this is a life. And I gained a lot of principles from that. I can go into that, just excellence and performance. But that was a very significant transition for me. To end the story, I was in that industry about 5, 6 years, and the entrepreneurial bug caught me, and I've now transitioned into the tech world and all that. But there's tremendous lessons from that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you use athletics to better your life? In this case, it was something that created a passion and drove you in those days prior to you exiting that industry. What did success look like to you? What was your vision? How did you think you were going to change the world in terms of excellence in fitness?
Well, and to this day, I still hold this in terms of me personally, but I learned very early on the way that the human body functions, and then there's the health aspect, and then there's the performance aspect, and those are in some ways different. But what I would say that I took the being a lifelong athlete in to make sure and better my health as I grow older. That was the key thing, right? There's one way is you're an athlete trying to make the team and you're trying to make millions of dollars in the professional leagues, and that's a kind of a very, very difficult experience, obviously. The other side is how can you embrace these principles of fitness, health, and performance. We're all performing, no matter if we're a professional athlete or we're out on a run in the morning on the street there. That's what I took to really change my life, and it's stuck with me. I maintain a tremendous health in terms of active life, And so that's kind of the thing where if I knew like, oh, my life is changing, I'm not going to be training professional athletes, I'm not going to be impacting these people and helping them either, maintain their level in a sport. I at least am going to take these principles and keep them in my life so that I'm, you know, I'm the 80-year-old still running a couple miles every morning on the street.
Good. Well, look, that's life changing for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Founders Live is an amazing program. I had the opportunity to meet you a couple weeks ago in Philadelphia, and it's exciting. According to your website, you're in 53 countries. Um, you're in 130 cities. Just
Yeah.
told me you spend about half your time traveling the world, which is seems like an exciting and interesting lifestyle. But one of the programs is that you have a Shark Tank type event where you get founders that pitch their story, entrepreneurs, and they get 99 seconds to tell their story. So, Nick, you're on the clock. What is Founders Live? 99 seconds. Go.
Founders Live is a global ecosystem for early stage startups and entrepreneurs. And when I created my a startup before I started Founders Live, it crashed and burned. And I learned that the experience of being a founder and CEO is tremendously lonely. And over time, what I've learned as well as entrepreneurs around the globe, simply put, they're underserved. They're not getting the connection into the ecosystem. They're not getting access to resources and capital, and they're not getting enough exposure into the market to be successful. So that's what we do. And, we're best known for these pitch competitions that could have 250 people, could have 100 or 75 people in the room. And then we have global experiences as well. And in the end, what we're doing is we're providing an environment and a showcase to to highlight these emerging founders that are building world-changing things, whether it's for their city or their country or their world. And we help get eyes on them so they can actually access that capital, onboard new customers, and go on and be successful. And yes, I started in Seattle in 2014, and we've now reached 135, 140 cities across 53 countries. And it's been a beautiful thing. And, my time is probably almost up, but we can talk about Founders Live athletes and through this process, taking my history plus what we're seeing in the market, the intersection of athletics, entertainment, and entrepreneurship is smashing together right now, and it's a very, very exciting time. And so we have things that serve athletes that are turned entrepreneurs as well.
Perfect. Well, that's a perfect ending to the line of questioning that I have for you. So, but let's say fundamentally about in entrepreneurship, in your professional career, and I understand Founders Live in 2014. What have been some of the fundamental shifts in entrepreneurship? Has it been technology? Has it been perception? How have the Kardashians changed the world, perhaps as influencers? Give me some idea of what the shift has been, the changes have been, and how you've paid attention to those.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question because, um, you know, uh, when you go back maybe 10, 20 years, I think a lot of people, their vision of founder and entrepreneur or CEO possibly could have been a Bill Gates type of person where it was like, oh, okay, they're this really smart person, they're a developer. You have to be that type of, character to go on and be successful. That's not true. And more importantly, it's not true for today's world at all. So the changes are that, people that have less technical skills can still create amazing companies because of the advancements in technology. And look, I don't even know if we have enough time to go into, a lot of the AI stuff, but when you look at the trend, the ability to pick up aspects, tools, and things to put together the necessary aspects of what you're building and bring it to market is absolutely amazing. So that's a huge trend and transition that kind of more everyday people that aren't, fully professionally trained and learned in coding or building an app, you can roll out basically anything. And that's a huge trend. Secondly, I would just say when we start seeing I think when you look at Jordan back in the day, Jordan was or and then kind of the next one was Tiger Woods, where it's like, wait, these guys are athletes, but they're making quite a bit of money off the field or the court, in either sponsorships or any sort of business nature. It became clear that okay, we can all do this. And, everyone started to understand that there are paths for them to take their life in their own hands, they are the company and the corporation, and their name, image, and likeness allows them to be in rooms and recognized and actually getting access to either capital or products that they can push. And so I think that all trend was significant. And the last thing is now you have this industry around it that there has to be an industry, right? There has to be sides from financing to legal to brand building, agencies that help you build your brand. How do you actually, run through social media and, accounting? Geez, I could go on, right? So the industry is built around it now. Probably 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was not an industry. So I think those are the things that have really happened.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, it makes sense. I've noticed in my lifetime of professional career that I remember when I started in business, there was this long, slow curve to learning an industry and creating value in your company. Today, that's pretty steep and it's a lot shorter time, right? And I don't know if it's the classes that we take or the internet that provides access. I remember running a sports and entertainment company in Los Angeles in the 2010, 2012 range. And I was hiring young people out of college that were entrepreneurial in mind. And they would come to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. And, I was the old school, right? I mean, if you weren't the first to the office, you weren't trying. And what I learned quickly was that they were consuming information and growing and learning 24/7,
Yep.
right? And that these young people today have a different view on education and how they consume information. Obviously, the internet has accelerated that. Some of the things that I get asked all the time is, how do I start a business? Everyone has a vision. They think they have connections. Give me some advice for the freshman, sophomore, first, second year college student that has an entrepreneurial spirit, if from an athletic standpoint, but also from the general student population. You know, what are the examples? What are the resources? How do you advise people like that? I'm sure you meet every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to sequentially go through some thoughts and some steps here. First and foremost, I think the first one is, you do have to decide what kind of okay, the life, kind of how do I want to live? What sort of there's positive and negative tensions. If you're gonna go down the entrepreneurial path, you're adding some stuff to your life, okay? And especially look, if you're an athlete as well. I spoke with a few actually at the event in Philadelphia, and it's kind of funny because I'm like, okay, you're still playing college football, but you also have this, and then you are, I guess, a student as well, and you realize like how much do I need it, and can I put in my life? So that's number one, just evaluate the kind of a near to midterm path ahead of your life. Number two is you absolutely should start going to things like Founders Live and others. Founders Live it's a community event. There was more than 100 people there in Philadelphia, and the people in the room are amazing. You're going to meet a bunch of other founders within a few hours. You're going to have many conversations, and you're going to either connect, oh, hey, let's meet for coffee. Hey, let's work on this. Oh, you're working on that too. So what it is it's getting you in the flow and the mix of this community so that you can start to maybe meet some other co-founders or people that can work on a project with you or whatever. It's going to pique your thoughts and direction. Thirdly, I would say you got to really look at, okay, what am I passionate about or what intrigues me in terms of what solutions or what problems do I see in the world to solve? If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to figure out there's problems in the world that I want to bring solutions to and or do something. It could be as simple as, getting into real estate. That's really like connecting someone or an organization with a piece of land, right? It could be as complex as, creating a new LLM for, large language training for AI, right? And these are things, that's the spectrum. And so the point is, what turns you on so you can actually get in an industry. And then lastly is I would then you start really finding there are absolute tools out there that you go and maybe even challenge yourself. How, when you're ready, how quickly can you get what we call an MVP? So it's actually a minimum viable product in the tech world. How quickly can you get a testable kind of workable product at the lowest cost possible
Mm.
and get it starting to get used? Literally, what am I saying? For very little to no money, get something out there, a prototype, if not a very minimal product, to get testing and usage. And I think you can do that within a month now, if not weeks, and you will then learn. Okay. So that is a sequential, suggestion of how you want to go about this. And then keep going to things like Founders Live and other meetups and conferences in your cities and whatever, and within 6 months a year, I think you're going to you're definitely going to know a direction where you want to go.
Awesome. I mean, that's just soundbite heaven right there. All right, so I'm going to turn those words around at you a little bit. So you saw a need in the market. You thought Founders Live was a solution. 11 years ago, 2014 to 2025. How has Founders Live changed since your original vision?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny. Look, my first, my first kind of thought to get all this started was, look, I failed at this startup. I mean, it was about a 2 to 3 year experience. And I was like kind of lonely. I was like, geez, I think we need something better in the city of Seattle. So I just started this event, and it was a pitch competition. So the Founders Live pitch competition is we pre-select 5 founders. They each have 99 seconds to pitch. There's 4 minutes to questions. We cycle through the 5, and at the end, the crowd votes on the winner. And so it's our kind of it's a format that really I just tested it out. And so for the first few years, it was just running that event in Seattle. And then actually there was there was a point where other cities wanted to do this. So I created the city leader role so we could have someone as a leader in the city and they kind of run the event. And so we just started open new cities. I would say for that first kind of handful of years, it was simply like, hey, a community is forming. We're kind of taking all these cities. We had like 5 or 10, and then this kind of forms a little Founders Live community. Um, Over the last additional 6 years, I would say what's really changed is like realizing globally the essentially billion or 2 billion people in the world that can and should be entrepreneurs and founders that yet are underserved. And they don't have the access to the right resources and the right opportunities. And by the way, like my day and weeks, like I talk to people in Ethiopia, I talk to people in Pakistan. I just had a call today. This guy's in Alexandria in Egypt, and we're very popular and strong in Egypt. Okay, and you realize, whoa, they're humans too, and they're insightful, they're smart, they are as equally equipped to be successful and run a company as you and I here in the United States. They just don't have the proper resources and opportunities. And that's what changed. And so my vision went from like a couple thousand people to a couple billion. And that's probably gonna happen. And it's weird to say that, but it's like that's the opportunity is opening the lid. I mean, imagine what would happen to global GDP if there's just, another 500 million or a billion more people could just be a little more successful. I'm talking about creating $1 million, $10 million, $50 million company. The world changes. And so that's really the vision now.
Ah, it's inspirational. Makes you want to go out and run around the track a few times. It's
I
good.
know.
No,
I
it's
know.
good stuff. We're winding down here, but I have a question. So you just gave us great background, the inspiration, the execution, the evolution. We've gone through a nice little storytelling, which is what I teach about this. I'm sure there's many. You've met hundreds of, not hundreds of thousands of people. Is there one story that sticks with you that really kept you motivated or perhaps just touched you?
It's to really be honest, it's so hard. I travel the world. I meet tens of thousands of founders. Um, I think I can't point to an exact because there's so many, but what I can say is I think what really instantly came to mind was, um, in 2022, okay, 2022. I traveled over to Indonesia and I was in Southeast Asia for about 2.5, almost 3 months. And, actually spent most of that time in Indonesia in a variety of cities. Indonesia is the fourth or fifth largest populated country in the world. Very large, all these islands and stuff. And, I landed in Jakarta and then, I ventured out into various cities, and one of them was the way I describe it is it was on one of the bigger islands, but it was basically like Des Moines, Iowa, in the sense of like comparative in the US. And it was like this kind of village, city, town, um, in the middle of nowhere in Indonesia. And like we had Founders Live there. And, okay, you're taking a guy that, just a typical American guy, started this thing that is now all over the world, and I'm traveling around, and I'm literally in this very, very foreign country. Indonesia is beautiful, but it's also, it's different and totally different language. And here I am in this city, and we're having this gathering, and it's Founders Live, and they're on stage, and they're speaking Bahasa Indonesian. Okay, I don't even know. I literally don't know what's going on in my own event. And I think that that was a moment in time where it just, and I'm seeing these people get on stage and pitch, and it shows you in this rural kind of town village in Indonesia, they're also entrepreneurs. They're solving problems, and they're so excited to be up there. And I was there, so it was kind of a special deal. But you just look at that, and that was just one of those moments. I've had a number of them, but it was just like that lightning and you're like, I'm here, and I'm here to do this. And again, I go back to that human thing. It's like that's when I realized, like, humans really everywhere want to create, they want to build things, and they want to be successful in their own way. And so that was a very special time, and it really has paved the path. And the my inspiration literally is meeting these early stage founders with the sparkles in their eyes, and it's their first startup. Maybe they're like 25, and they're just like, that's it. That's what keeps me going, and
Yeah,
building, and that's who we build for. So, eventually they can go on and be successful. But it's very, very touching, to be in kind of the middle of nowhere in the other side of the world, and to see your logo and them talking about, and then being inspired by that. That's really cool.
I can't put a better cap to the story than that. That's great. You're a great storyteller, and
Thank
I
you.
can't, I can't wait for the book because you got to be writing a book at some point. You write about all your
You know,
travels and everything.
I when I can find the time or find the right, kind of ghostwriter, there is a book. We work on some cool content around. There's some show stuff that comes out around my travels as well. And but yeah, it's fun. And again, we're here to really move forward. And I think the last message here is, we really didn't talk, too much about it, but I think when you look at, everyone has an opportunity to be an entrepreneur. And I think in today's world, it's really about, what moves you, what do you see as insightful that you can, put on top of either a product or service. And then there is now channels to reach the world through social media and others. Go do it, and understand that your athletic career is only going to go so far, but your business career can go pretty much your entire life.
Drop the mic moment. That's awesome. Nick, if
Thank you,
people
Mark.
want to learn more, website, social media, how do they find you? LinkedIn, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. We're on most all of the platforms, but most active on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Nick Hughes, and if you just look up, Founders Live on LinkedIn as well, you'll see us, and founderslive.com, and that's where you'll find a lot of our stuff. A lot of, hey, if you're interested in attending an event, pitching, go there, and we would love to hear from you.
Great. Well, listen, I think You hit on a lot of things that resonate with me as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a startup guy, a little bit later in life, but which presents some challenges. But I think it resonated with me. So I get what you're saying, and relate to it. I wish you nothing but success. Thank you for your time, and I'm going to take your words of wisdom and apply them to my audience, which is athletes as entrepreneurs.
Hey, thank you so much. Enjoy.